Hey guys, what's up? This is Danny Plays, and welcome back to another video. Um, this is I'm doing another transform video where I transform one of my friend's builds. This has been the hardest one for me because I've been staring at this for like over a week, and I had ideas, but I just hadn't got around to doing them. So now it's time that I actually do the transformation. Um, this is probably the last time I transform a friend's build. By the way, this is SlankyBoi's build, so I mean, uh, someone who's been on the channel multiple times. Now, this is probably the last time I do a transform a friends build, but if you guys like the transforming builds, what we could do is I could transform the natural structures that spawn in Minecraft, or I could do other transformation videos. Just I could get my the same friends who did these to do more, or I could find other friends who wanted to do it. But you know, whatever works. So why don't we get straight into this? Okay, so when I started this, I thought it reminded me. So I need. Very difficult to transform, so I felt more like adding a lot of smaller details, although, I mean, decisively a wall is not that small, but adding a lot of smaller details and kind of just adding extra pieces would be the best way to transform this, and I actually think I was right. This one ends up coming out really well, but now that I actually talk about what I'm doing right now, the reason I'm using two separate woods on either side is I didn't know whether to use a wood wall, an oak wall, which I thought looked really nice originally, or to keep in style with SlankyBoi's original build. His original build is mainly spruce and dark oak. In fact, I think it might only be those materials. So I went around, I built this wall using a cool technique I've learned where you just kind of at random pile logs and mix in the stripped version of the log. Eventually, after looking at them side by side, I realized, yeah, sticking in theme looked better, because having the oak out of nowhere didn't really make sense. So I went back, changed that around, the wall might be what took me the longest. I then proceeded to put spikes on it, alternating between oak and spruce fences, because they have nice color contrast. And it gives the wall spiked appearance, which, I don't know, just looks nice. It's not the most effective wall, but it gets the aesthetic point across, so. Next is the gate. The gate caused me some trouble, because originally I was just going to leave it closed, but I didn't like it closed. Then it was too short, so I made it taller again. Then I tried to put handles on the door, but handles didn't really work, because going on the outside wouldn't make sense unless it opened inward. Well, so then I decided to make the gate partially open, which the gate I'm happy with, but I think it could have looked a lot better, and it did take me a long time, just because I kept finicking with it. This part is something I did become happy with. I thought, okay, so this is an outpost, right, and the soldiers need a place to kind of, they're going to need to, like, relax and eat and stuff, right? So I made a nice little cooking pot being suspended from a chain, and I didn't know how tall to make the chain, so I messed with that, but then I realized, yeah, making it one chain is too short. I then used a new log design that I've discovered, which I really like, because instead of it just looking like a log, they actually have seats in them. And I then filled the cauldron with brown water to try and make it look like stew was brewing. And I then, grass wouldn't be around a fire, so I started sprinkling kind of this rough, messed up ground with a combination of path blocks and gravel. I think I went a little overboard with this by the end of the project, but it probably looks fine. I end up liking it, but I don't know if I didn't do enough or if I did too much. Then, obviously, if it's an outpost, the soldiers don't just need to eat, they need somewhere to get the food that they eat. So I thought adding a farm was a good idea. So I built this really big wheat farm. The reason I chose wheat is the most aesthetically pleasing crop. And I don't know, it just looks nice in big patches. I then try to do some more of that rough ground, and this is what I'm talking about. I go really overboard with this rough ground here. I tried to do a path, but then the path looked too perfect and didn't really look right, so I tried to expand it, but by expanding it, I made it look even more perfect, and so even though this is the build that I probably changed up the least, it's the build that took me the longest, because I wanted it to look good, but see, that's too straight, that's too perfect. It shouldn't look like that, so I tried breaking that up. And breaking up worked a little bit, but then I decided, okay, so this place is kind of tromped around all the time, so maybe instead of just having like a path, we make this rough up ground all around. So I began to coat the entire place in it, but I don't know if I do that yet or if I do that later. I thought some timber for like building the walls would look nice, and again I did oak and spruce, testing which different one would look right. I do end up with going with oak, which I know doesn't make much sense because there's nothing made of oak other than the fences here. But one, the oak looks a lot nicer with the campfires because the campfires are made of oak no matter what would you make them out of. And so one, it just made more sense to do it that way. Two, I wanted some color contrast because having the same color log throughout the whole thing just didn't really look good. So I went in, used one of the oldest tricks in the Minecraft book, and used rails as kind of something to secure the logs. I then proceed to go around and bone meal all of those beautiful crops that I planted earlier. And now we get some nice looking wheat that from afar above it doesn't really look back, but if you go back, see, I really like the way that color just stands out. What I'm doing here is I'm building up a watchtower. Now I thought having two flags, one big like the one he did and then the smaller one, would look really nice and kind of established that this place was for some greater kingdom. And I switched from spruce to dark oak fences because I realized that's what he used. I also made the tower too tall originally, and it didn't really look right. So I shortened it by 2 blocks, I think, maybe 3. And then I did the same process again, which actually got me to roughly the spot where the flag started, which worked out good because I wanted to put a smaller flag there. And I looked at how his flag was built and kind of just tried to minimize the version that he had made. And I think in the end I actually do a pretty good job of that. Then I wanted to add as much detail into the small tower as I could. So to kind of make it look like it's more supported and more bulky and more defended, I put trapdoors around. And then as if it was like screwed in or like hammered in with nails and stuff, I put stone buttons around. And I decided that putting stone buttons on the bottom, well actually at first I thought maybe putting them on all the logs would look good, but the buttons on all of them just didn't look right. So I eventually take the ones off the top and only do the ones at the bottom because it looked right on the bottom. At the top it just looked like overkill. So I begin to spread these buttons around again as if they were kind of nails, and I then start scattering, but because I misclicked and put a button on the ground, I realized that the buttons would actually look really nice as rocks on the ground. Because if there's one thing, I put a bunch around the campfire because, you know, people pile stones around campfires to prevent the fire from spreading. So I thought doing that would make sense. And something that I try to do the most when I'm building is remember that don't use blocks as what they actually are, because then the build just doesn't make sense. So I went into his and looked around at his interior because I completely forgot to do the interior, so I quickly built up that pillar. And when I came down here, I saw that he had blocked off the wall and made the room smaller than it had to be. So I opened up one of the walls, closed it off a bit, changed out the floor for stone, because I thought if in kind of a base like this, if it was underground, it would have a rocky, gravelly floor. And I thought this would be the perfect room for a storage room, although I come back to that later, I think, once I finish. Yeah, I do this, because he had almost as if it was a carpet, but it's just a change in wood color. So yeah, I come down here, and I try to see if I could do anything with supports, but the way the half slabs worked, I kind of couldn't. So I start piling chests and barrels around, trying to make the area feel open while still being... No, I'm trying to make the area feel cramped while still being open enough that you can wander around and see everything. Because I want this place to feel like it's being stuffed full of everything. So that's why I took the shelf out, because I didn't think the shelf looked right. And then I put stuff there, but you couldn't walk around, so that was it. So now I'm doing the staircase that leads to the upper stories. And that was a simple spiral staircase. I plugged in that wall because that's what he did, and it made more sense that way because, I mean, you couldn't go in that area anyway. Now I just had to think what to use these rooms for once I finished the stair. And I realized, yeah, there wasn't much room up here. I originally wanted the upstairs to be like the bedroom for the soldiers, but I decided there wasn't enough room for that and made it an armory. So I gave every armor stand a sword, and then I messed around with shields for a while, but I couldn't find a way to display the shields in a good fashion. Like, I couldn't figure out if there was a way to do the shields, so I just gave up on the shields and instead put bows and arrows there, and put chest full of arrows. And honestly, I think it worked out better that way. I think that was better than anything I had done with the shields. So here's me just messing with armor stand poses, trying to see if I can make the armor stands fit in any way, and when they don't, I just do the bow thing. So right now I'm just filling it with arrows. Interiors really aren't my thing. I can do some nice tables, but I can do chairs, but I need room for that. I can do nice beds and stuff, but when I'm cramped for a room like this, I have no idea what to do with interiors. So I wanted a bedroom, but then I didn't really know where I could fit a bedroom, but I thought they need a place to sleep. So I decided to do a really tall bunk bed structure. And I kind of knew what I wanted this to look like, but it changed a few times before I eventually decided what it looked like. The trapdoors were too thin, and I didn't think they looked like they could support it right. So I did half slabs, and honestly, it worked better. So I feel bad for whoever has to sleep on the top bunk, because that is right up against the ceiling. So I put out a war table, as if these people were, like, getting ready to attack. Like, maybe they're even attacking the little beach house. I don't know why they would be doing that, but maybe that's what they're doing. So I went out, and I started filling this map table up. getting everything on. And I think if I do any more transformations on this world, I'm going to update the map so that, because right now it's kind of just an expanse of green. And it would look better if it was, you know, a full-on map. So yeah, I think I'm going to update that every time. And I don't really have much to say other than I'm pretty proud of how this came out. Okay, here we go, guys. SlankyBoi is here to see the version of his house. I'm actually very proud of this, even though I didn't change that much. Finally, here we go.
Sheesh.
So yeah,
Sheesh.
started with a little wooden spike wall because, like I said earlier in the video, I thought yours place reminded me of a colonial kind of outpost, and like a lot of like colonial places had these wooden spike walls.
Oh yeah.
So I did that, and I mean I thought the soldiers would need a place to eat, so big farm. Back here we've got a little cooking pot where people can sit and I guess talk while they eat their stew. I don't know what they're putting in that stew. There isn't any like potatoes around here. Then we've got this nice little stack of logs.
I broke a bell.
Oh, you broke a bell?
I broke the bell on accident.
It's fine. I've broke that bell at least 10 times. I don't have the bell in my inventory. 1 second. There. So then, the most obvious change, other than the wall, I'd say, is I put this big tower here, well, small tower here, that has a smaller flag on it, and this is like a little watchtower, right? I added buttons along the bottom to kind of act as if they were like screws or something. Then there's an interior. So let's go check that out. We've got the sleeping area. We've got a map of the world, which currently doesn't have much in it. I mean, I guess I could update this map every time I do a transformation build. If we go downstairs, you had a little room with nothing in it. So I made that like a storage room.
Oh, nice.
So we've got
I didn't know what
chests
to
and
put
stuff.
there.
And if we go up, we've got a little armory.
Nice.
And then you can outlook over the balcony. And, oh, I added these lanterns. But the thing that probably took me the longest was actually this gate. I went through so many versions of this gate.
Looks good. Sheesh.
So, while this is probably the build I changed up the least, this might actually be my favorite one. Oh, also, because of this was the sleeping area, I took out the windows here. But I left them in the upper stories so that people could like shoot out them if they wanted.
Yeah.
And I tried to give the ground a like little rough look to it with the gravel and stuff. And I used buttons as little stones. So, all in all, what do you think?
It looks good. I built mine purposely to make it hard.
Yeah, I think you're the person who took the longest to build theirs. So, you heard it here, folks. Stamp of approval number 3. I'm 3 for 3 here. Let's go. And I'll see you guys in the next video, whatever that may be. If you guys want more transform...
Subscribe!
I like this man. If you guys like these transform videos, leave in the comments if you want more and what you want me to transform next. Goodbye!